find people in Slovakia are really happy people. It's very hard to find happy people nowadays, right? You have to come here. Everybody's miserable, like in every country. So you're very happy. I've never seen a conference starting with a comedian. That's very nice. It's really beautiful. So I want to start with this. The biggest problem in education is children. Right? Without children, schools would be perfect, right? That would be wonderful, right? Just the problem is that we have children. And then the second problem is that children are different, right? That's our second problem. You look at this. We got really different children. And then our problem is we have one education system that tries to meet the needs of all children, right? That's our biggest problem. So something, for example, you all know there's this, everybody knows something called the PISA, right? PISA, the test. PISA, I know you guys don't do very well. Congratulations, okay. It's, you don't need to do well, okay. Because I had a debate with Andrea Schleicher, who runs the PISA. He doesn't know anything about education. He only knows about testing. So I had a debate with him in England, actually. It was about 6 years ago. You can find the video on YouTube. You can find it. So our debate was like parallel talking. He was a 3-year-old. I was 3-year-old. We never interacted. We just talked our own thing. So it was not even a conversation because he does not understand education. Because now PISA scores has been used in every country to represent what our children can do. But as I showed you, children are different. So we use PISA scores to say, are you doing well? Like Finland is doing great. Of course, it does not have the high mountains. It's just a boring place. What are you going to do? You study, so you get test scores. What actually, if you think about it, PISA scores are really interesting. Like in America, I've lived in the US for over 30 years. So in America, they've done many education reforms, you know, right? Every country is doing reforms if they're not fighting wars, okay? Education is the easiest place to have a reform because we just change the curriculum, change the pedagogy, or change the students. You can change everything, but it doesn't work. Never worked. But America has been doing reforms since 1950s, 1960s, right? Because they always believe American education was in decline, was getting worse. They always believe that. So I look at the historical data. Was American education in decline or was getting worse? No. It had always been bad. Was not getting worse. It had always been bad. It's been bad for a long time. So you want to say how bad has it been? If you look at American education, it has a very long history of bad test scores. In the 1960s, the first international mathematics study, American 12th graders ranked 12th out of 12 countries. Now, if you know math, that's bad. You can't get worse than that, right? But those people in the 1960s, they have retired. They have not ruined America as a country. Trump might, but those people didn't. You think about this. It's been all these test scores. So you always wonder, why is America still here? I mean, why is this after so many years of bad test scores? And why? What's going on? Well, Canadians always want to know. Now they are afraid of becoming 51st state. But anyway, so why was that? So I tracked some of the studies. It's kind of interesting. If you look at the correlational studies, wealth, FIMS, that's First International Mathematics scores, in 1964 correlated with negative 0.48. Means if a country's test score was higher, their GDP growth was smaller. So you shouldn't have good test scores. It's a bad idea. And then if your rate of growth is also negative, and productivity, negative, and quality of life, negative. Okay, so basically, if you had high test scores, it was bad for your country. It's bad. And they said, okay, why is that? Why is that? So there were some really interesting studies showing this. Actually, look at this. This is from Tom Lovelace to show TIMSS. You probably know TIMSS. It's another international study. It's called Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study. That shows countries with higher test scores, the students have less confidence and they enjoy the subject less. And PISA actually has produced similar results. So I want to show you another actually thing. So if you track this, basically is that, you look at this, why is America still here compared to Asian countries? American students always score below Asian countries. But then Americans say, no, I may not score very well, but I'm happy. I may be stupid, but I don't think so. That's the idea, right? If you go through this whole thing, it's that, I may be wrong, but that's just fine, okay. Now, this actually is quite fascinating. If you look at the PISA scores, I analyzed the PISA scores, and it's PISA scores. If you look at the PISA math, that's the red line, and you look at entrepreneurship capabilities. Higher scores are negatively correlated with entrepreneurship capabilities. This is quite fascinating, really. So what do you want? So basically, PISA scores have a misleading problem. So I wrote an article which you can read. So that's 2 decades of havoc, a synthesis of criticism against, not A, against PISA. I have nothing against A, okay. PISA, okay, this is, now, in education, our biggest problem, really, is we have an adult-designed system. We use the measures to measure all students' progress. It actually doesn't really matter. The test scores do not matter. What matters is what we call confidence, enjoyment, creativity, right? Everybody wants creativity, for example. Who hates creativity? We love it, right? But it's not in my classroom, it's best when it's in other people's classroom, we would love it better if it's not in my classroom. But creativity, if you look at actually the whole thing about creativity is, this is really interesting. If you analyze this, if you look at the age, when we are born, about 98% of our children, when we are born, are extremely creative. And then as they go to school, age 8, 32%, age 44, 2% are creative. 2% means schools kill creativity. And then, but after retirement, your creativity comes back. Right? Why is that? Like if you go to China, now if you go to China, it's really interesting. All the retired people are very creatively dancing. Really, if you've seen those, right? They're doing all kinds of things. So why is that? Because we learn not to be creative. And creativity relies on, well, this is just one little data. The other problem is that we need to understand our children are uniquely different. Children are different. And how are they different? They have different intelligence. Multiple intelligence theory, you are talented in different ways. They have different personalities. Some people are very extroverted, others are very introverted. You know that, right? That's why you get on an airplane. Some people would love to talk to you. Some people say, no, don't talk to me, right? You have this. And then we have different motivation. The people are driven by different things. So you have children, and therefore you have something like a red-nosed reindeer. You know red-nosed reindeer? Everybody knows red-nosed reindeer? You're a Catholic country, you still know red-nosed reindeer? All right, okay. So this is a Disney manufacturer. You know, Rudolph had a red nose. But the government says noses should be black. So red is bad. So Rudolph was not liked by anybody. Rudolph was sent to special education. We want to train Rudolph, right? But then, on the foggy Christmas Eve, Santa Claus was looking for GPS, something to light the road. And Rudolph, the red nose becomes historical. Now, are our schools treating every child as a Rudolph as good, not as bad? But in our schools, we don't. In our schools, we accept things we want apply to all children. Like, for example, growth mindset. You've heard of growth mindset? We want all our children to have growth mindset. So that's stupid. You should learn to give up. You know, if you insist on doing something, keep doing the same thing when you have no hope, why would you do that? Isn't that stubborn, stupid? So I've talked to Carol Dweck, the inventor. I said, no, sometimes you should really learn to give up quickly. And that's what we want our children to do. If our children are not good at something, what would you do? Tell them to give up, move on to do something else. Like when I went to America, many educators believe we can teach you anything. They can teach me to play football, American football, if you know American football. I said, well, no. Yes, I can learn, but how many Chinese have you seen on the football field? Could they have survived to do anything? I would be crushed right away. I said, I learned to give up really quickly. I was born in a Chinese village in the 1960s. And there was no hope going to school, college, or nothing. 1960s, Cultural Revolution. And in my village, I was the worst. I could not drive a water buffalo. I could not climb the trees. I could not do the farm work. I was small and tiny. I was bullied all the time. So when Chairman Mao Zedong opened a rural school in my next village, a teacher came to look for students. Nobody wanted to go to school at that time. There was no hope. My father said, since you are so bad at farming, why don't you go to school? That's how I ran away from my bad farming, so I can do good at school, right? Then when I went to went to high school, I graduated that year. The college entrance exam was resumed in China. But I was really bad at math. Luckily, that year, the government said, if you want to major in foreign language, your math didn't count for you. I said, wow, I would major in foreign language, even though I did not have good language either, but I was better than my math. I had 3 points out of 100 in math. You think all Chinese are good at math? That's not true. Okay. I was bad. But I was better than Jack Ma, who founded Alibaba. He got 1 point out of 100. So Jack Ma, actually, we had a conversation about this later on, a few years ago, because he founded a new school in Hangzhou. He asked me to help him consult for his new school. That's a different story. So think about this. Learn to give up. So in your education system, when you are reformed, are you able to change your thinking to say, can our schools allow diversity? Right now, globally, every country is doing education reform, and they are doing reform in many different ways. So I wrote a book about Chinese education. I said, Chinese education is the best and the worst. It is the best in achieving test scores, but it's worst in creativity, entrepreneurial thinking, imagination. You may have seen China, we have a few companies popping up, but they're not an inventive country. I mean, China has 1.4 billion people. Imagine the whole thing. It's not inventive. So the first thing is that can you allow diversity in your school system? Right now, in the age of AI, I want to highlight a very important thing. An article I wrote is the rise of the useless. Talent diversity is very important. So can your schools cultivate new talents, new capabilities? The AI, or generative AI, has arrived. It can do already better than perhaps 80% of human beings in most of the cognitive tasks. Why do you still want to teach our children what that machine can do? You know, people are worried about AI is going to make us lazy. Of course. Technology is supposed to make you lazy. You buy a microwave, so you don't have to cook like that, you know. You have tools, so you don't have to do that thing. So AI is going to replace human beings. Our schools need to find new ways to teach. In this summer, I run a summer camp in China with students from Australia, from China. The theme for the young students, 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds, is what is worth learning in the age of AI? What is worth learning in the age of AI? Don't ask the question how it can help teaching. Teaching needs to be transformed. Curriculum needs to be transformed. Pedagogy needs transformed. When you use AI, it's personalized learning, it's personalized pedagogy, it's personalized learning methods. You cannot apply the same thing. I think many countries are trying to apply AI. How can I teach better? You can ask AI. AI can give you a great answer. How do I teach math better? How do I teach this better? But that's probably useless. That's probably useless in the future. What we need to rethink. I'm really happy to be in Slovakia because you could be leading the next wave if you're willing to rethink. Every education system at this moment is outdated. There's no good education system. If you look at our education, I was thinking about PISA. This is why just now we heard so much is that all countries on the PISA scores have been in decline. The average test scores over the last 20 years has been in decline. Has gotten worse, education. You know, all those reforms, investment, we made education worse for the last 20 years. And the achievement gap has not been closing. And the country you like the most in Finland, I got this data from Pasi Solberg. Pasi told me, Finland is in decline as well. Well, it's probably, again, global warming is snowing too, and not snowing as much. But anyway, that's the look at this, the Finland is getting worse. So where can education go? Where does it go? It is basically coming to, I just wrote a new book. You got to buy the book. Okay, that's why I'm here. So the whole idea is that stop fix the past. We need to recreate, invent the future. We need to consider AI as a partner. We need to consider AI as co-evolution with our children, with our education. Thank you. Thank you.